I asked her earlier, I have a few comments, then I actually want to have a discussion with you. It's not what we normally do, you know, but let's keep this speaking. But I really want to talk to you about education. Because I think the last 4 years, we've basically battled and fought and made quite a few mistakes. Quite a few mistakes. And I want your opinions and your ideas, and I spoke to your executive prior to coming in, sitting down as a group to try to start to unravel and figure out how we actually focus on education and not as much the bickering and the pointing of fingers and superintendents are greedy and all that stuff, because some of the decisions we've actually made have really hurt education over the last few years. Now, first, I'll talk to you about a few issues, and I was told we could have that discussion. I want to talk about pensions, because I think that's on everyone's minds. We did some very difficult things with pensions, and I know they weren't popular, but we had to fix the pension system. Understand, and I'm in a room full of very bright people, if you don't fund the pensions properly, they go broke. And we were on the pathway to go to bankruptcy, as in Detroit, where they went broke. I started the discussion on pensions in 2006, because I'm the chairman of 2 pension funds. I understand them probably better than anyone else. And they were going broke. I asked everyone on my labor side, my labor friends to work with me on it, and we had one hell of a fight and said, don't talk about it. Well, when we approached this next time around, I think 2010 and 11, a small problem became a very big problem, because you can't ignore the numbers. What you want to get at the end, you have to pay in the front. And there's a lot of discussion about how the government skipped their payments. They did. That made it worse. But does anyone know what an assumption rate is? An assumption rate is what you assume your pension is going to make each year. And they factor in how much you contribute. This is really exciting stuff, guys. But I got to explain this because people really don't understand it. You assume your investment, you're going to put your 5.5 or whatever % in, and your investments are going to make 8.25. Now, number one, 8.25 is an outrageous number that you can't hit. You really can't, because you got to look at it. You're going to make 8.25% for 30 years. Now, we would all like that, but it don't work. Well, the last decade, it was 2%. So every year we were coming up 6.25% short. And no one did anything about it. Everyone ignored it. And a small problem becomes a big problem. So the fix became much more difficult. Now the governor keeps talking about that we have to do further reforms. He's flat out wrong. We did the reforms we needed to do to fix the pension. And the pension's on its way to fiscal health. For me, it was never a fight against, number one, I'm a union person. I'm not against unions. I believe in unions. I do minimum wage. I do card check. I believe in that stuff. I'm not anti-worker. My focus is strictly pensions. The governor's got some other issues going on right now, so now we're going to start a fight over pensions again. We're not doing that, because you are paying your share, and we have to pay our share. Now, when we negotiated this deal, understand something. I knew exactly how hard it was going to be. And the pension payments, as high as it's going to get really high, for one reason. We didn't pay for years. So you're catching up. But what the administration's not telling you is, once you get up to that payment, it's going to plateau, and after 6 or 7 years, it's going to decrease. 25 years from now, the pension obligation will be $1 billion a year. It's going to be hard now, easier later. But that's what happens when you don't pay your bills. You know what I mean? It's no different than anything else. So we're not making any changes to the pension system. And yes, it's crowding out money for education and everything else. But the other thing we're not talking about is growing the economy. All you have to do is look at New York State. New York State's recovered every single job that they lost since the recession, plus 50%. You know what New Jersey's done since 2008? Recovered 45% of their jobs. That's where turning the economy around will generate revenue that will help us fund things. So when the governor talked about a longer school day, and I got to be honest, I don't know, how do you pay for it? It's not free, right? If you ask somebody to work more hours, you have to compensate them. So we're not pitting people that have earned a pension against families that want longer school days. So I'm going to take from you to pay for this. That's what happened in the past, and we're not doing that. Look, if we stay the course, we're fine. And I can tell you, I am not moving off of that position. Now, we knew these numbers the day we signed that bill, but we expected we'd get the economy going better. We actually expected the economy to grow faster and stronger than it has. So we're going to face a lot of tough times in this state because of this, but if we can turn around and try to get our economy growing again, and the growth is there. I look at things, it's either half empty or half full. You know, it's like glass half empty or full. The one positive is we haven't reached our potential. If we reach our potential, we'll be able to fund that. You know, we could fund education by implementing a millionaire's tax. We talked about that before, having them pay their fair share, paying what they paid when John Corzine was the governor. I've offered to sunset it so that when the economy turns around, we cancel. But we have to do something to find other revenue sources to come in and fund education. Because New Jersey's economy is driven by education. The lack of investment in higher education has hurt our economy, and the lack of investment in K-12 is hurting our economy. And I think I'm in a room full of educators, so preschool is pretty important, isn't it? So is full-time kindergarten. We have certain things that we measure. You know, there's actually things that we know. Instead of all these, look, we test way too much for way too many things. But there are some things we do know are proven to improve education. And that's why we have to find ways to fund them. So when children have a better start in the beginning, it's like the old Fran commercial. I'm old enough, pay me now, pay me later. You have to make that investment early on if you want that child to succeed later in life. So for me, education, I wasn't, if there's any from Penn Saucon, they know I was not the best student, by far. Because I thought I was smarter than the teachers, and I was just being under-recognized for my brilliance. You know, so I got to tell you, education changes everything. And our lack of investment in education is what is really hurting our economy. They go hand in hand. So refocusing and reprioritization of education in the state is what's important. Now I said, you know, we've made some bad decisions in this state. And I'm not saying it for this room, but the capital superintendents has now created, I think 25% of the superintendents in the state are temporary. You know, the superintendent was a job that a lot of people strive for, and it was a career. You got there, and you were going to demonstrate the value of why I hired you or you or you, because it was a career track. If I'm there for 2 years, how much of a career path is that? How hard am I going to work? How hard am I going to focus on really making changes that are needed? Because I'm gone in 2 years. So basically, that's called a caretaker. And education can't afford caretakers anymore. Again, that was a big mistake. You have people running $1 million budgets, and they're professionals, they're not politicians. You know, we say, well, you can't be higher than the governor's salary. Look, he ran for that job.
That's right.
Right?
Thank you.
I run for the job I have. You don't measure people that are full-time professionals running multi-million-dollar budgets. say, well, the governor only makes this, so you can't do that. Well, the proof's in the pudding. We're losing superintendents, no one wants the jobs, we have nothing but temporaries, and it's hurting our schools. So that has to change, and the governor has to recognize that was a mistake. Great politics, bad policy. The other issue I have a concern with is that we're rushing this evaluation system. Again, if you truly want a result, then take the time to make sure you do it the right way. And not force, say, I met this goal or this date. I'd rather do it right and get the right time frame and the right results at the end of the day, because they're real and they're not forced. You know, my son, I was saying earlier, my son's going to be a teacher. And he just finished his master's, and you know, when you talk to him, and you think that teachers are being pressured not to educate, like when we were growing up. We're just going to make these numbers work. We're not doing any benefit to the children that we're promising a future to. So I asked, and I think we're going to form a small group, because what I would like to do is sit with educators, leaders in education, superintendents, principals, the union, honestly. Tell us what we need to do to make it work better. Sometimes when you work, instead of like telling people like, we know what's best for you, listen to professionals that do it every day, and maybe we can make it better. Now, that's what I asked to do, and I'm hoping that we can do, because I also know we put a whole lot of things on education. You know, our budgets are tight, and how much, I won't use this word, but how much garbage, that's a better word than the other word. How much garbage do we give you that has nothing to do with education, but you have to meet? You know what I'm saying? Let's start peeling back the onion and get rid of the junk, the garbage, and take those resources and at least put them back into education where they belong. So, I really want to have a conversation with you. I think that's a long enough speech. Honestly, no one complains about a short speech, you know that. I learned that early. That's how I got Senate President. I know when to stop. But I just saw this as a wonderful opportunity, and I know this isn't how it was planned, but I want to pick your brains, if you don't mind, and give me some thoughts on what we're doing here, right and wrong. Would somebody start, please? Someone, don't be shy. Yes, please. Steve. Steve, thank you.
Since you want me to call you Steve, I'm going to tell you I know a friend of yours, Carlo Moreno.
Yes, he's got a bigger head than me.
I was going to ask you if I could tell that story. Beat me to the punch. Okay, my question is this. It's talking about funding. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. In the governor's budget proposal, New Jersey schools are receiving flat funding again this year. We are worried that the proposed budget takes us further and further from the formula that the legislature enacted under the School Funding Reform Act. This year we're getting basic aid plus $20. Does the legislature plan to run the formula to see where schools are projected to be or where they are, and is there any plan to modify the numbers?
Listen, you know, some of the problems with the school funding formula is that the governor actually picked a fight and brought it out of his back. You know, the courts had said don't go below this level. And, you know, we passed a school funding formula that worked. I mean, it would be nice if we could fund it. But again, that all takes into the fact that we have to grow our economy to fund things. Because we really are. The resources aren't there the way they need to be. But yeah, we got to look at all those things. We got to look at the numbers. You know, we did extraordinary growth districts a year or two ago to get funding to recognize growth districts. So yeah, we can look at that, and we know we're not funding right. Because we know that. There's not an argument at all. The argument was picking a fight with the court to make $400 or $500 million more go into Abbott districts. to bring them back when we actually had a funding formula we thought was fair. That money follows the child, you know, so much for vocational training, regular schools, special needs. So yeah, we are looking at all that. Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your comment on superintendents. It not only affects superintendents, but also affects principals. You know, there's many school districts where principals or the business administrators are actually making more than a superintendent, which is another story. But the question I have, and we're developing the park sample field testing, and I would make a plea that they seriously consider using next year as a field test. We just started. I come from a district that we're well into the technology. We spend about $300,000 a year. I have a tremendous tech team. We actually did a sample test for the sample test yesterday with only 4 classes, which was supposed to take about a half hour. That took about 2.5 hours. I can't imagine we're doing 300 students. Next year I'm going to have to do 2,400 students. It's going to be a debacle. And you know, we're not saying that it's something that shouldn't be done, but as you said earlier, it's something that we ought to give some serious consideration to, and we need more planning. You know, with this setup, we're told every other day we get an email from the state telling us that there are some new changes that have to be made. I have to have people on my technology team go to every single computer, make sure they're all updated, and still, when we tested it yesterday, we had some real difficulties. So it's going to be problematic, and you know, it may turn out to be a good thing, but we need more time.
Well, you know, believe me, we've heard this, and the governor said, "Oh, this is just a delay tactic." It's not. You know, what you want to do is, if you're going to do this, and this is the path we're taking, I think we want to just do it right. So we're hoping with the new education commissioner, Dave Hesby is a professional. I think, you know, when the governor nominated Dave, I think a lot of people felt pretty good because they know him, they know what he does. We have confidence in him, I can tell you. And I think he's strong enough to argue or fight for a position that needs to be done. And we need, you know, it's like, why are we rushing for something and we don't get it right? If we take a little more time, we're still going to do it. But by doing this, you know, the testing and the sample testing and all this other stuff, that we get in position to do it right. So I agree with you, and we are advocating for that, to provide more time to do it right. And as far as the principals, you know, that's what really blows my mind. I got to tell you, I'm the superintendent. No one wants the job. I'd rather be a principal with tenure. I'm going at risk. And these are the people that actually formulate policy and work with the school boards to really drive education. And when you get to 25% of your superintendents being temporary,
And 25 are left.
yes.
And,
I know.
and good people.
Good people. Too many good people. So, you know, you want your best and your brightest educating your children. You really do. And you want to reward them and compensate them where they should be, because, you know, at the end of the day, that's what drives our whole economy. New Jersey, you know, New Jersey is so successful with the pharmaceuticals because we got smart people here, and they were educated here.
And you know, the governor's looking at extending the school year. Wait till parents, the general public, realize that we're going to be testing 2 months out of the year. And I think that 2 months is going to look more like 3 months. You know.
Well, you know, you're right. And the other thing is, are all our buildings air conditioned? You know, I mean, seriously. You know, it's a good soundbite to distract from what we need to do. Tom and I work, I build bridges, just so you know. But you know, it really comes down to, look, don't put up stuff like the rhetoric like that. Honestly, we got things we have to deal with. And as painful, like I said, as the pension payment is, it's exactly what we thought it would be. So if it was something new and it was, wow, this is something, no. Governor's right. It will crowd funding from other things, unless you're willing to let us do a millionaire's tax, we'll sunset it. You don't even have to sign it, just let it become law. Because the governor can do that. They can let a bill become law without signing if he disagrees on it, just to take the pressure off the government a little bit until we turn our economy around. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, President Sweeney, for being here, and thank you for your previous comments, especially the one that we cannot rush this evaluation system. To my colleague, I thank you so very much for the part, because I'm doing the testing next week. Thank you. When you said that we cannot rush the evaluation system, that's exactly what we're doing. We're rushing it as a principal for over 25 years, 42 years in education. It is coming an overload for us. Yes. It is extending every muscle that we have to make sure that it works. This evaluation system takes more than me as a principal to go in and do our evaluations. With the administrative cap, is there something that can be done that we can allow people such as supervisors who can come into the schools, come into the buildings, come into the classrooms, and assist with the evaluation system? If you have not done, I'm doing Danielson, if you have not done Danielson, and if you're doing it correctly, it's going to take you over an hour just to write one observation. It's going to take you that. And we cannot do this alone. Understand, as you said, the president, that the governor, he took the job, he knew his salary. I knew my responsibilities. But more and more and more is coming upon us, that's making the job very, very difficult.
Well, honestly, I'm not against, and I don't think anybody in this room is really opposed to coming up with a new testing system, right? I think everyone in this room just wants to make sure it works right. Now, again, this working group that I want to sit down with was taking the administrative cap, that discussion. But someone already told me that you really can't even physically do what's being asked now. So again, those discussions, we form a little working group, maybe we can address that. But like I said, the point is, and the governor said this out, just don't want to do it. And I don't believe that. You just want to do it right. Yes, sir, in the back.
Again, thank you for coming, Senator. This is my 44th year in education. And I'm going to use a term, I think, that I'm going to speak for myself, but I don't know how the colleagues here feel. The people in Trenton are fun suckers. Okay, they've sucked all the fun out of being educators. They've sucked all the fun out of working with kids. We're not a business. Okay, you can't put a micrometer on a kid's head and measure them. And I just want you, I've tried to get reporters to write stories on this, and it appalls me how the testing is done. And again, this is my own personal opinion. For the New Jersey Ask, last teacher I hired had 150 applicants. They had to go through the whole process. They had to be the best of the 150. They taught for a year. The kids take the test, and you know where the test goes, Senator? Where are the tests scored? Do you have any idea?
No idea.
New Jersey sends them to a place called Measurement Incorporated in the hotbed of education, North Carolina. Okay? And up until last year, the people that scored the test did not have to be college graduates. Okay? If you go on Measurement Incorporated's website, it says seasonal employment. They bring the people in, they give them a rubric. They train them for a couple of days. But up until last year, you could have been a file clerk last week, had not read a child's essay or writing sample since you were in 5th grade. And now you're scoring that child's essay, which is going to determine if the teacher stays a teacher. I find that inherently wrong. Teachers should be scoring writing essays, not file clerks. The scores come back, and the state is going to then extrapolate those and use those to put a number on a teacher, a 3.2 or a 3.7 or a 1.9. I don't think you'd want a steel the steel that you work with, building bridges, with a guy who's never put steel up but has a rubric. He has a piece of paper, and he looks at it, and he says, this goes here and this goes here. And that's what's happening to some 800,000 tests that are being sent to North Carolina to be scored after New Jersey educators have taught the kids. So I think as a basis, somebody has to look into the whole process of the teaching and the testing and find a better way to score these and make it meaningful. I just did a survey in my school. 24 days are dedicated to assessments. 24 days. The governor wants longer a school year, cut out 80% of the assessments, and you've got 20 more days to teach. It's really quite simple, and it's really quite common sense. And you sound like a common sense kind of guy. Somebody needs to look into this whole process, and the word you were going to use before, that's basically what I think it all is. I really do. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, because honestly, we don't know that stuff. That's why it's good to hear it. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm speaking today as the principal of a high school, as the vice president of a board of education in the state, as a parent of an elementary age child, a middle school age child, and a high school age child. My remarks today are, I see what's happening in terms of the amount of time and the quality of time that I am able to, my children are able to devote to their studies, as well as the students in the school where I work. The amount of time that has been diverted from actually teaching students in the school year is so profound that I believe we will set students back a year in their education if we allow the plan to go forward as it is developed. We are currently taking away from students time to determine whether or not a teacher is a good teacher. We are now giving them assessments for PARC, which are going to extend 20 days into the school year. That does not consider the fact that other things like SATs and AP exams and other things, especially at the high school level, are out there. My children are coming home and talking about how they're practicing the test. They're not talking about anything about learning anything new. It is of great concern to me that we would allow our resources to be diverted away from program and curriculum and instruction, which really is the reason why we come to work every day. We don't need a longer school day. We need more time to teach the kids what they need to know.
Well, I agree with you. We're just so focused. Somewhere over the last decade, someone said, well, we got to really focus on measurement. And teaching a kid how to take a test. Well, the kids are real good at taking a test, but didn't learn anything. But he knows how to take a test. That's not what we want. I'm saying, listen, we made mistakes. And some of this is about trying to reverse some of the mistakes we've made. And that's why, again, I want to have this conversation with you guys.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to address some issues concerning special education. I work for a district that we are all special ed, and we did pilot the DLM, which is going to be the new version of what the testing will be. It was atrocious. That's all I can say about it. It was horrible. We are going to continue to do the piloting, on this, but basically what's going to happen is that every child that we have will have to be tested one-on-one. And the amount of time that that's going to take for that teacher to be pulled away from the rest of their class to test one child one-on-one for, as long as they can, stand the testing, which is going to be over a number of days, is going to, if you think it's going to be bad enough with PARC, which we also do have some students that still will be taking the PARC, and have extended time, the amount of time that's going to be taken away is going to be incredible, absolutely incredible just for the testing. The other aspect that I wanted to mention was that even with the Common Core standards, and we're instructed to take, let's say, a high school student who is maybe functioning at a first grade level, or less, and having to put into there that they are taking algebra because we have to align things to their grade level. You know, I had a parent, I had a set of parents coming to me just the other day whose child had been with us. They were very pleased, you know, while the child was with us. And because of inclusion, they got pulled back to their sending district. They've been back in their sending district for 3 years now. They came to me the other day and said, what do I have to do to get our child back with you? Because they are not learning, and they are just being, they're just being fed the information so that they can, pass. And they said, but realistically, my child is not learning anything, and why do they have to be addressing subjects and areas that they have no comprehension of when they can't even do some basic reading or basic math?
Well, I can tell you, we fought back one initiative that was basically going to make the teachers do the IEPs instead of having a child study teacher. And I have a daughter with Down syndrome. Everyone gets motivated in life to do things for reasons. I just didn't like the way people with disabilities were treated and the way they were educated. So, like where I'm from Gloucester County, we created a school system called Bankbridge. And that was an alternative for parents. You want parents to have a choice. They want inclusion, great. But my daughter was in an included program in West Effort, and not one girl ever called her to play with dolls or go to a party or anything else. At Bankbridge, she's kind of life. Because, the social aspect of education is just as important for the development of someone. Lauren's got a cell phone, she's got an iPad, she's got a boyfriend, which I'm not really happy about. I keep telling her she's going to fall down playing with scissors. She gets mad at me. But and we created, my daughter plays sports. She goes to dances. She's living a full life as she possibly can. And one of the programs that I created before I left the freeholder board was an adult continuing training at our county college, where when people age out at 21 of education, somewhere for them to go to continue the education. I don't want my daughter sitting, playing video games on the sofa. I want her to be a productive citizen. So we're going to be the first one in the States actually having a building dedicated to this program on the campus of our college. So it's a college for the disabled to continue their education. So I guess what I'm getting at is we at times just think that, well, this is good enough. Or, we'll do this or do that. No, it's not good enough. We have to work as hard as we can to give people with disabilities the ability to have as full life as they possibly can have. And, guess what? We can, we do, and government should focus on hiring people with disabilities on top of it. They're very good employees. So, that's how I got into this. Someone said about not having a college education. I don't have one. I don't have one. I was a typical construction guy. I was an iron worker. And, I fell off 2 buildings. That wasn't fun. It's not like the cartoons when you land. You don't get up, it doesn't feel real good. But, when certain things in life hit you in the face, you have a decision to make. So for me, it's like, I want to be an advocate for the disabled, but it's expanded. I never planned on being a senator, being a senate president, doing anything. I just want to help the disabled people. But, there's more than just helping the disabled. When you get into seeing what's happening with education now, what's going on in education in the state directly connects to the economy of the state. And we are not getting any better. And we prided ourselves on being the top of the nation in this, top of the nation in that. We got this great product, but we're kind of ruining it by focusing on, we know we got the best product, right? We really do. And it's because of the teachers in the classroom, and it's because of the superintendents and the principals, that they're striving to ensure that our kids are the best. And then what we do is focus, well, we're going to test to prove it. Forget the testing. The product is the child that's going to college and is going to have a great future in front of them. You know, the biggest problem we have is we export too many kids out of here. You know, we're the number one exporter of children in the nation. We export about 35,000 kids. We got this great work product. You know, we put all this work into them, we put all this money into them, then we send them somewhere else. Other states recognize what we have. So we don't, you know, the rush to focus and the rush to say that we hit this test at this point in time, and we might not have gotten it right, and the measurements could be very wrong, and the people that are doing the measurements are not qualified to do the measurements, but we did this, that's wrong. I don't think anyone's against testing, and I don't think anyone has a problem with doing it if they just want to do it right. And you know, if you do it right the first time, maybe you can shrink the amount of time of testing and teach kids more. So, I mean, really, we're paying attention to that. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Howard Mednick. I'm a lifetime educator. I would like to say we do fully agree that we need good superintendents to help run our school districts. But I will tell you, the most important person in education is sitting in this room right now, the building principal who is passionate about the education that is going on in their particular school. You are hearing different things from educators here today, so I do have a recommendation for you, if you don't mind. I would recommend...
As long as it's not a four-letter word.
It's not. I would recommend that you put this association on your speed dial, and when you need to make decisions based on education, you speak to the lead educators of each school, which stems from this organization. So many things are occurring that are not helping children. And quite honestly, at my age, I got 6 granddaughters, 3 of them in New Jersey, and so much is being lost, specifically in the arts, specifically because of this whole testing fiasco, where children are not even singing in the classroom anymore, when we should be making, as one of my colleagues said, we took the fun out of education. No, we took the fun out of education, not for us, but for children. Thank you, and keep up the good work.
I would argue there's another very important person in teaching, and that's the teacher.
Thank you.
I would argue that also. I think every component, every aspect from teacher on up is important because it's a team effort. And if people aren't working together and aren't focused on getting that end product, which is our child, in a position where they can go further than us. You know, the greatest feeling in the world I experienced a couple years ago, watching my son graduate from college. Who doesn't want to see their children go further than them? Isn't that the aspect, is that the goal in life, is to see that child go further than you did? That's what's great about this country. You can come from any walks of life and have an opportunity to be successful. I might have one more question to someone came up. This will be the last question, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming out here today. I am a superintendent. I'm Patrick Tierney up at Roxbury School District. Regarding the park and the amount of money that's allocated to it, last year my district spent approximately $700,000 just purchasing technology, because it's a lot more than just the computers. You got to do the backbone, you got to do the switches, the things of all that nature. Now we're struggling to, and again, we pride ourselves as being on the cutting edge of technology, and we're concerned about the AM to PM session, because research shows that kids test better in the morning as they do in the afternoon. You were a kid, I was a kid, AM kids take the test, PM kids are going to run back, hey, what'd you do, what's on it? You know, so there's a whole lot of, you know, stuff going on there. But the financial situation, $700,000, I could do a lot of good hiring other teachers as opposed to having to go somewhere else that doesn't need to go. You know, I don't want to be a caretaker. I got into this, you know, I was a special ed teacher. I got involved. I climbed my way up to be a superintendent so I can do things, so I can give back to the kids. It's not a job for me. It's a passion.
Thank you.
And it is. You know, you and I can talk the talk, and we use a lot of four-letter words about the stuff that goes on down there, and it's just, do us a favor. Stop, think for a minute what's best for the kids as opposed to what's best for politics. That's the time.
Listen, I agree with you.
Thank you.
I agree with you. I kind of monopolized more time than they thought, but I really appreciate it because I need to hear this, honestly, because I'm not in your world and I don't see it. You know, and all we do is hear things, but it's up here instead of where it really belongs. I'm one of those people who actually wants to, I don't care if I'm getting yelled at. You know, for one reason, I want to know. Because if you know and you don't do something, that's one, you know what I mean? But when you don't know, it's worse. So I truly appreciate letting me be here today. I offered before we sat down, I'd like to have a working group with this organization to start fixing things and taking things apart, because we can do that. We can do that.
And just so you know, in front of our members, we want to commit to that working group with you. And we also really, I want to say, on behalf of all of our members, those who are not here today, our members are all passionate about what they do. They care about kids, that's clear. They also know the importance of Common Core, the importance of solid curriculum, good assessments. They know the importance of evaluating staff members in a way that's going to help provide feedback to them to better improve practice in the classroom. But all these initiatives have to trickle down to the classroom level to have an impact on our students, which is what they're supposed to do. So that's why you hear the calls for more time, a coherent approach to implementation, so that we have a thoughtful, these are thoughtful, well-educated people who understand what has to happen. That's why they hold these positions in schools. What has to happen in a school to make this work? They're dealing with people every day that they have to get buy-in from, have to train. And by the way, a big component that we feel strongly that is needed so much is dollars for professional learning. This doesn't happen without professional learning. And that is so important for not only our administrators, but our teachers, our superintendents. We need to do this thoughtfully. Therefore, we need time to learn, we need time to internalize, and we need time to implement.